Welcome to Empowered Living. I'm Ann Shu. On this podcast, innovative leaders and visionary experts share insights and practical tools for work, family, and marriage. Each episode, we'll explore how to elevate your life while staying grounded in what truly matters to you. You're working hard to navigate relationships, build a thriving family, and create a legacy of purpose. We're here to help you do that with confidence and intentionality. So if you're ready to live a life by design, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Empowered Living, the podcast where we explore the habits and conversations that help us build more intentional, resilient lives. I'm your host, Ann Shu, and today we're talking about a family lifestyle that challenges convention, world schooling. I'm joined by Cassidy Crowell, creator of World Schooling Map and mom of three, who has spent years building a life where travel and education go hand in hand. In this conversation, Cassidy and I talk about how an unexpected pregnancy at 19 set her on a path toward living life on her own terms. We also talk about the balance between home routines and travel routines and how it's important to have both, and the myths and realities of world schooling. And then we also talk about why sometimes less planning makes for the best adventures. If you've ever dreamed about taking your family on the road, or just want to be inspired by what's possible when you align your values and your lifestyle, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Hi, Cassidy. It's so great to have you on the show today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right, let's dive in. So I love this life that you guys have built for your family, living life really on your own terms. But I know it takes a lot of courage and, quite frankly, planning to do it this way. So how did you know that this was something that you wanted to do or that you needed to do for your family?
Well, to be honest with you, I got unexpectedly pregnant when I was 19 years old. And at that point in time, I was very overwhelmed with the idea of like, oh no, like traveling's over. I had traveled a lot in college and it was definitely like my top priority at the time. And it kind of put me into like a dark place to think like, oh no, like my life's over before it's even beginning. And I had started watching like YouTube during this period of time. I had to take like a hiatus from school for a semester from college during that. And I just spent a lot of time on YouTube and found some like families who were traveling with young kids on YouTube. And it definitely got me motivated, got me excited, being like, people are out there doing this. Like, you don't have to stop traveling because you have kids. And so for me, there was never any like joining it later on. It was just like from the get-go, like, this is what we're doing. There is no alternative. Like, this is who I am. And I'm not going to change to not being this person just because I'm having a baby.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how do you guys balance? Like what is the ratio of time at your home base versus time on the road?
Yeah. So right now, or the past few years, we've spent about 4 months per year traveling and 8 months at home. And then those 4 months are divided up into 3 separate trips. So we usually travel about 6 weeks at a time. That tends to be our sweet spot. Too long, we get a little burnt out, and too short, it doesn't make sense financially because the flights are really expensive out of our regional airport. And once you're kind of in the flow of travel, it makes sense to keep the flow going, or at least for us, it does. So we found it works best to kind of do 6-week trips a few times a year.
Okay. So how do you balance the routine that you probably have when you're in your home base and then when you're on the road, the routine probably goes out the window a little bit, I'm assuming. How do you deal with those adjustments back and forth?
Yeah, I just think after a period of time, you get enough trips under your belt and you know the like trip routine. Like we have our home routine and we have our trip routine. So like at home, my partner does a lot of working kind of on the computer and bouncing around job sites. So I'll get up and I do breakfast with the kids and get them off to whatever their programming is, whether it's camp or like the homeschool co-op they attend here. Whereas like when we're on the road, I spend a little bit more time working on the back end of my online business. So he'll be up with the kids first thing and he'll be doing breakfast with them. And it just kind of shifts based on, the needs of that season.
And then tell me about, like, having been on the road, what are some things that you thought you could never live without, but now that you're spending all this time on the road, you're finding that you just don't really need them anymore, or maybe you just don't miss them as you thought you would have?
Honestly, I'm somebody who juices and blends a lot. And at home, I like kitchen machines. I have so many kitchen machines and I'm like generally a very like minimalist person, but I love my juicer, my blender, like my immersion blender. And I don't travel with any of that stuff. And we just make it work. You can buy a smoothie anywhere. And yeah, I definitely am very excited when we get home to get to use those things again, but I don't even think about it when we're gone.
Wow. And how far out are you guys planning your trips, and how do you decide where to go?
So I always have like an under layer plan going on, but I can't share it with my partner Scott too far in advance or he gets overwhelmed. I'm definitely the, pusher of travel. So in his mind, he finishes a work project and then he's like, go book the tickets. And we're usually only booking 3 to 4 weeks out. But in the back of my mind, like I've had it planned out for months and kind of organizing it and getting different trips lined up in the queue. And then when he's ready, we just like hit the go button. And a lot of the trips revolve around like good flight deals at the time, but a lot of them revolve around like the best season and the best place. When we had an RV during COVID and we met somebody during that time who said, follow the butter. So if the butter's too cold and like frozen solid, you need to head south. And if the butter's like melted and it's liquid, you got to head north. And so we kind of follow the butter as far as the weather and just kind of, yeah, keeping comfortable.
I love that analogy. Okay, so how do you guys maintain a sense of rhythms and traditions while you're on the road?
Yeah. I think the family culture that you build is really important, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the same actions every day. It's more about what's important to the family and kind of expressing that that's important no matter the setting that you're in. So, like, say our family's really valuing health, we're going to make that a priority at home by doing all these like home cooked meals and things like that. We go to the gym a lot, but when we're traveling, we eat out a lot and we kind of value the health differently. And we're not going to the gym, but we're like exercising as a family at the playground or something like that. So, like, keeping the family culture strong, even though the setting is always changing.
Okay, so I know that you guys just got back from a hub in Peru. Can you tell us what a hub is and how it works? And for the people that are listening that are curious about world schooling and what that means, how do you take advantage of hubs?
Yeah, so hubs are super cool and they're kind of a new thing. I like to think of this as something that happened post COVID, a huge benefit to the traveling community post COVID. All these people went remote with their jobs and they wanted to travel, but a lot of us had kids and people who are working remotely still need a solution for childcare or for something for their kids to do during the day. Like they're not all stay-at-home parents just because they're working remotely. And so these hubs began to pop up, and every hub is different. Some hubs are a week long, some hubs are 3 months long, some are permanent in one place. They exist the whole year, and you can drop in for specific sessions or like an ongoing enrollment. Whereas others only happen in this one place for this one like blip of time and then it moves on and it's not a permanent location. So they're all different. The one we just did in Peru is called Deliberate Detour. And they just launched last year and they have 2 and 3 week long hubs in Peru and in Mexico. And they're very culturally focused. So some hubs are more focused on like longer term goals. Like a lot of them are focused around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals or like accomplishing like a bigger project. Whereas the hub we just did in Peru is very much culturally focused. And it was kind of like a group trip for families, learning a lot about like the Incas and like all the local culture that there is to explore in Cusco.
And how long was this hub, did you say?
So the hub we did was 2 weeks. So the kids were in session Monday through Thursday, and it was a drop off hub. So you leave your kids there, and then the parents can work or explore, or like parents having like a date during the day, which for a lot of traveling families, that is a big hiccup, is like being able to have that time to connect with your partner or to do something independently because you spend so much time together when you're traveling. So the hubs really offer a great solution for that. So this hub was 2 weeks long, but the Fridays were full family field trips, which kind of gave us a chance to experience some of the cultural things side by side with our kids.
And how old are your kids?
So our oldest is 8, our middle just turned 7, and then we have a 1-year-old.
And do you find that they like being on the road more or they like being at home base more?
They really enjoy both. I will say they enjoy being on the road a lot more if there is a hub than if there isn't a hub. They get a lot more freedom and independence and just like the opportunity to connect with other kids. And it's a different kind of connection. Whereas if you're just traveling and you're like going to the playground every day, but you're seeing different kids every day, you're not really like deepening a relationship. Whereas when you show up and you have the like same consistent group of friends every day, they're having this deepened friendship relationship, and our kids thrive in those like hub environments because of that.
Are they able to stay in touch with other kids that they meet at?
Yeah, we have like group family WhatsApp chats with some of the other families that we've gotten close with in the hubs. We have not been able to like re-meet up yet, but that is in our plans, hopefully for this coming year, to meet up with some of the families we've met in the past.
So, what do you think are some of the biggest myths that people have about world schooling?
I think a lot of people are concerned that they can't afford it. And I think a lot of people are concerned that their child is going to fall behind with like reading or math or like college prep when they're a little bit older. And that's not to say those things can't happen, because they totally can. And world schooling can be very expensive, but there's definitely ways to mitigate every fear that someone might have.
Yeah, so let's talk about the academics part. How do you make sure that your kids aren't falling?
So my kids are young. Our oldest is starting third grade, like right now, September, and our middle one is in second grade. So they're very little, and I haven't felt too much pressure up until this point to like keep them on a college prep path or anything like that. I will say we do spend 8 months a year at home. A lot of those are summer months, so there's not a schooling option. But when there's like a school year in session, our kids do this homeschool co-op type thing, and they do reading and math and like Spanish and all those sorts of things there at the program. And when it's time to go on a trip, I don't worry about like keeping up with anything that they would have been doing at home. We don't bring like worksheets with us or anything like that. We have had some apps that we've let them use before, like the Duolingo ABC was really great when our kids were first learning to read. There's some great free math apps. We don't buy like a homeschool curriculum or anything like that just because I don't think they need it yet. But if my kids were a little bit older, I might reevaluate and consider adding in a curriculum. If you're world schooling and you're spending a lot of time in the longer term hubs, I think they tend to have more of an academic focus versus if you're world schooling without hubs or you're dropping into these very short term hubs that are culturally focused, they're going to get less of that academic core that you might get at home. So it's really up to your style and how you want to do it. I know a lot of families are bringing curriculum with them or doing an online curriculum. For us, we found it balances out with what they're doing at home, and they don't need to, push harder to be number one in their class at reading or math when we're away.
And based on what you've seen at the hubs as you guys have been on the road, do you think there is a age of child where it's like these are the best 8 years to go and do world schooling in this range?
It's really hard to say. I think that many hubs are not even available to your child till they're at least 5. Some start
Mhm.
earlier, like you can get in Boundless Life when your child's 1.5, but most won't take a kid that little. It's basically like a daycare at that point, which
Yeah.
Boundless Life is great for that, but many hubs won't take them. And then obviously when you get into high school, most hubs aren't catered to high schoolers either. So this like golden window, I think from like kindergarten till maybe like 7th or 8th grade is a really awesome opportunity. And that's not to say you can't do it anytime, because you totally can. But yeah, if we're gonna optimize timing, I think elementary and middle school for sure.
And okay, so we talked about the school part, but you said the other big concern that you see is the financial aspect. So um, I know world schooling can be really expensive, but when you think about like the average, what do you suggest as average income finance situation to be able to do a world schooling experience?
I think that if you really had a tight budget, you could do it a lot cheaper than what we do it for. I think we're a little more lax with the budget because that's a season of life that we're in right now. So it's hard for me to put like an actual number on it for other people because we all have like a different standard of what we find acceptable. Like I have 3 kids now, so we're looking for a little bit bigger accommodation than when we just had the 2 older ones, especially having like an infant and kind of needing separate space for her. It really depends where you want to go. We've traveled a lot in Latin America, and being in like Colombia is super affordable, but then we traveled to Iceland and it was super expensive. And it just really depends on what you want to do. I've met families in hubs who were kind of taking a year off. So they gave up their housing back home and they sold some things, and they have this like lump sum of money. And those people tend to be on a stricter budget, but more time free on the trip versus people who are working remotely or are funding the trip with passive income. They might have to pay a little bit more attention to their business or to their job, but they're a little bit more financially relaxed and can say yes to more of the opportunities that arise.
And do you know, based on what you see when you're on the road, do you have like a certain word that you would describe these families that you trust? Like, is there a common characteristic of these families?
I think different hubs and different places really attract different types of families. I will say we've done like 4 hubs, I think now. And If you're enrolling in a very expensive hub, you're attracting a very wealthy clientele. And a lot of them are business owners or they are like CEO, CFO at big companies. Like I said, we did a Boundless Life cohort, and those people were a lot wealthier than the people who we met at some of these Latin America hubs. Like when we were at the Hive, a lot of the people we met were taking a year off and they were like on a shoestring budget and they were all sleeping together in like a single, like 1 bedroom apartment for the extent of their trip. So it just really depends on the setting you put yourself in. You're going to connect with people who that setting attracts.
Yeah. What do you guys usually do for housing? And do people in a similar hub stay at the same place?
Yeah, it depends on the hub. So some hubs offer housing and that's included in the price, whereas some you just have to go out and find it on your own. And we've done a lot of Airbnbs, just because it's nice when you're staying for an extended period of time to have the kitchen and all that. But if we can get a hotel suite that is big enough for us and it has the kitchen, I would opt for that because I think there tends to be more amenities just overall. Like we're not usually getting an Airbnb with a pool just for our family. We have occasionally, but like it's nice to have like amenities like that if the space is big enough. But something I really try to find is a place with a yard, and it's not always possible because some places you're like in a city and you're in an apartment building, and that's just the reality of it. But if I can find a place with a yard where my kids are able to go outside first thing in the morning and kind of have that space, it really sets a better tone for the day than if they're like stuck inside a high rise apartment building until the whole family's ready to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. My kids, when we travel and we're in a hotel suite, if they're stuck in the hotel until we're all ready to leave, they're tearing apart that space.
Yes. Yes, exactly. It's chaos.
What do you think are some of the long term benefits of raising your children this way?
I think that there is a huge push right now with AI and kind of just being the internet age in general. But even we're past the internet age. We're in the AI age where all the answers to everything are at the tip of your fingers. And so the days of memorizing facts and even memorizing methods for a lot of like problems are behind us. And what our kids need for the future is it's really hard to say right now. But I think that something we won't regret is making sure they're different and making sure their life experiences help them to stand out when they are in like competition, whether they choose to go to college or they choose to enter the workforce or start a business, kind of giving them a different lens through which they're going to see the world, I think is really going to set them apart and help them to kind of analyze problems differently and be contributing members to whatever team they end up being on in the future.
And remind me, you said you've been doing this with your kids from the beginning. So this is all they've known, right?
Right.
What do you anticipate are some of the challenges, especially as they get a little bit older?
Yeah, we definitely get pushback from our kids right now. On this recent trip to Peru, we got home on a Sunday, and that Sunday night was their first baseball practice, and the next day was their game. The baseball has been very important. And then our trip before that, Australia, same thing. We got back and the next day we started with a game immediately. And so we've kind of had to like construct our trip itineraries and whatnot to meet this baseball season, which might sound a little crazy from the outside. We're not constructing it around the school schedule as much as we are around the baseball schedule right now, but that's something that's important to the family. But definitely just the kids wanting more independence. And like I said, the hubs are great because they get a little space away from their parents, but it's hard to be all together all the time in that the more you're around your child, the more you're going to parent your child, and your child needs space to like grow and become independent of like your constant direction. And I think that that is a struggle that we're seeing the older they get.
And what about this challenge of building, maintaining community and connection and friendships? How do you guys address that so it doesn't feel lonely?
It definitely does feel lonely sometimes. And the hubs have been a great solution for that. And just being in a single place for longer rather than like constantly moving. I'll tell you, it gets super exhausting to check in and check out of a different place every 2 or 3 or 4 days. If you can stay in a place longer, even if you're not in a hub, but like you're getting to know the clerk at the grocery store, or you're like getting to know these characters in the background of your community, like you're going to feel more involved wherever you are. And I think that the hubs have been a great solution, not only for the kids because the kids have these friends, but a lot of the hubs organize like parent only activities. So we're getting a chance to connect with these other adults. And it's really cool because our home community, we have amazing friends here where we live in Colorado, but I wouldn't say they're like minded in that world schooling or traveling with their kids is a priority for them. Whereas when you join a hub, you're meeting these parents who've wanted this like same thing. They've got a similar vision. It's really cool to connect with those people.
So it's funny that you talk about, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, man, I had a really good question I was going to ask you. It's okay.
And that's okay.
Okay. So, do you think you'll ever phase out world schooling?
I mean, I don't think we'll stop traveling as a family, but I do think that as our kids get older and they do get more involved with like a school rhythm at home and have more demands in that way, that we'll probably structure our travels more around school breaks than just being kind of a free for all. Whereas right now it's kind of a free for all. And we do a big trip over the summer, but it's more because where we live gets super hot in the summer and it gets pretty cold in the winter. And that's kind of what it's been structured around all these years leading up to right now. But moving forwards, like our kids definitely don't want to miss out on things at home. And I think that we will maybe not strictly, this is the week of Thanksgiving break and this is the week of spring break. But if we can add a week on either side of spring break, well, now we've got 3 weeks and we can join a hub and we can do a longer trip or something like that.
Yeah. Do people ever join hubs and travel together in the hubs to different places?
Yeah, there's definitely traveling communities. There's communities of people like the traveling circus is one, and there's the traveling village. And sometimes they'll hire like a teacher or like a Montessori guide, excuse me. And the like 4 families will split the cost of this like teacher to travel with them, and they'll stay in longer places. Like they'll be 2 months here, 2 months here, 2 months here, and they'll spend a whole school year together, those same like 4 families, but they'll have gone to different places, which is cool because it does really deepen those relationships for the parents and for the kids and with their educator who's already gotten to know them once, who can really like understand their strengths and weaknesses and play to that versus switching it up so much.
Yeah. You said that back home you guys have the kids in a homeschool co-op. How did you find that and what do you look for?
Yeah, it's honestly a very new program too. It came kind of as a post-COVID thing, but when my eldest was starting kindergarten, we didn't know of this option, so we just didn't put him in anything. And then the following year, he was going into first and our middle was going into kindergarten. And I went to all the orientations. I went to look at all the schools in town. And the biggest struggle for me for all of these, the charter schools and the public schools alike, they have this like maximum days you can be absent in a semester. And if you're absent more than like 16 days or something, which is not very much, it's like 3 or 4 weeks of school, you're truant. And they like report you to the court, even if the parent excuses the absence, which I find crazy, particularly in my state where like homeschool is totally allowed. But anyways, you're truant and it's like a crime thing.
Yeah.
So that it became obsolete. Like those options became obsolete. That was not a thing. And so I kept searching and I found this program, which is, it's not a charter or private, it's a ministry. It's like a Christian ministry. So they kind of get around a lot of the rules and they just encourage all their people to join like a homeschool umbrella school, which is kind of just like a way of tracking your hours and your activities and things. Should you ever have a problem, you can like display, this is like what we've done. And so that's how we kind of came about and came on this solution. So I was really grateful this program kind of came about post-COVID for a lot of the families where we live, because there is a huge like homeschool community where we live.
That's we're in Dallas and yeah, parents will get a Class C misdemeanor their kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I can understand in certain cases, but for people who are pulling their kids out to go on a family trip, it seems a little crazy.
Tell us about your world schooling map.
Yeah, so there's these world school hubs kind of all over the place, but they're not one organization or one program or one owner. And so there wasn't really like a directory for people to be able to find them easily. There's a lot of like world schooling Facebook groups or like Instagram pages you can go to, but there wasn't like one place where all the information was gathered. So I built a map. It's like a Google map where I pinned all these locations. And I update it every month because hubs come and go so frequently. Many of them are short term, or the sessions are changing or the locations are changing. So I try to update it every month. So I sell this map. And we just recently this week hit 200 pins. So there's like no other list out there that's nearly as comprehensive. And it just gives people the chance to see everything all in one place. So you can open the Google map. You can look at, okay, I'm interested in going to Europe. You can scroll in Europe and you can see, wow, there's like 50 hubs in Europe. And you can see what aligns kind of with your timing. Or if you really care about a specific hub, you can align your timing to that hub. It links to their websites and Facebook pages. Some of them have like special discounts on the world schooling map, so that's another cool thing. Yeah, it's just a way, and they're not all hubs. Some of them, like there's these like traveling family retreats or events, like all ages language schools. There's so many different things. So I just kind of like to think of it as educational travel opportunities for the family.
If somebody is listening and they're curious about world schooling, but they're not ready to make a big commitment, Where do you think they should start? How do you test the waters with world schooling?
Well, I would start with traveling with your family abroad on like a school holiday or something. There are a lot of hubs. You don't have to, I want to preface this with like, you don't have to join a world schooling hub to world school. Like you can travel with your family and learn from the experiences, the museums and the classes and everything along the way. But the hubs make it a lot easier and more enjoyable for our family. And that might not be the case for everyone. But so like winter break, say you wanted to give it a shot over winter break, you would go on one of the winter break hubs. There's some in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. I know the Wild Roots is having like you can drop in for 1 week or for 2 weeks and just test it out and see what you think. I mean, there's no way you're going to ever know if you don't test it out, and you don't have to like quit your job to break for winter break, and you don't have to pull the kids out of school. Just go on a school break and give it a go.
Yeah. What do you think that it makes sense to world school with a certain number of kids? Like if you have this many kids, it's probably too many, or I mean, have you seen any correlation there?
I mean, for me, I have 3 kids, and any more than that is just too many kids. But for people who have lots of kids, like I would hate to see them not go because they just think they have too many kids for the lifestyle. Like there's challenges that come with every size family for sure. But I think people who already have 8 kids already understand the challenges that come with having 8 kids, and they should still totally go for it if they're interested.
Yeah. Is there a certain part of the world that you would suggest people start?
It really depends where you're from and kind of how you're financially supporting the journey. If you are working remotely and you're working like East Coast hours, it would be really nice to stay within like Latin America because the time difference for your like remote job is going to be a lot simpler than if you went to Southeast Asia. If you're just like taking a year off or taking 2 years off and you can do whatever you want, but you have a lump sum of money, I would still prioritize like Latin America or Southeast Asia to, stretch your dollar as far as possible. But it's really up to you. For my family, when our kids were super little, we didn't do as much of Europe because we felt that going to the museums and the art galleries were kind of lost on them when they were little. And so we did spend a lot of time in Latin America just because it felt more like wilderness and beaches and jungle. And as our kids get older, we've definitely done some trips to Europe now, and it's amazing. And I mean, we started going to Europe when they were like 4, and they had a great time with all the cultural stuff. So I wouldn't let anything like that stop you.
And at what point do you feel like they were able to really start grasping and understanding like the art music, things like that, where you switch to that type of a trip?
Yeah, I think our middle was 4 and our oldest was 5, and we did a trip to Iceland and France, and we did like the beaches of Normandy and learned about like World War II, and they definitely remember that, and they definitely remember being in Iceland and going to like the whale museums. We had gone to the Dominican Republic earlier that year for a World School Hub called the Hive, and we had seen the humpback whales on like one end of their migration pattern and learned about like them birthing and seeing their calves in the warm waters in the Dominican Republic. And then 6 months later, we were in Iceland and we saw the other end of the migration cycle where they were like feeding in the North Atlantic. And like to be able to put into context, like something like humpback whales is really niche, but our kids were able to go so deep on the topic and they're going to remember so much about it forever because we went so hard on that like one very specific thing.
Was that intentional that about following the humpback whales?
No, it wasn't. But when the opportunity arose,
Yeah.
we pounded on it. I mean, like when it was there, we knew it was going to be whale season when we were in the DR. And so we prioritized the whale tour. We hadn't planned on going to Iceland, but when we found ourselves in Iceland and we were like, wow, there's a whale museum here, and we can go on this whale and puffin tour. And oh, they're the same kind of whales. It all builds on top of each other. And we've done the same thing with World War II. Like we've done the Jewish Cultural Court in Amsterdam. We did the beaches of Normandy. We've done Pearl Harbor. Like when you can see a topic from all these different sides, it adds so much more like real life context and makes it so much more meaningful.
When you guys come back from your 6 weeks on the road, do you come back feeling rested and rejuvenated, or does it feel like sometimes we talk about, like I hear people talk about the difference between a family trip and a true vacation, right? Like on a family trip, it's more educational and there's activities that you're really doing to create magic for the family, whereas a vacation, you're often coming back very rested, rejuvenated, relaxed. How does it feel when you guys return home?
It's work and it feels good to come home and we're like excited. But on the other hand, we do get kind of, I don't want to say burnt out, but like after so much time traveling, sometimes we feel like purposeless and like we have this like desire to come home and get back into the flow of like work. And doing things to like further something bigger than ourselves, which we don't always feel. Sometimes travel just feels really indulgent to our family, and like that's a blessing and there's nothing to complain about, but it feels good to come home and to be able to like yeah, get back into the flow of work and like adding to something greater again.
Yeah. So knowing that, what advice would you have for the families that are thinking about being on the road more than 6 weeks, right? Like if you're already feeling that at 6 weeks, the families that are thinking about doing it for 6 months or for a year, what advice would you give them?
I think first and foremost, I would say you need to give yourself time to adjust to the new lifestyle when you're going into it. Like if you're unhappy at week 3 and you're feeling purposeless, like you need to not just drop everything and change course right away. Like you need to give yourself some time to sit with it. And beyond that, I think something important to do is to give yourself maybe like a project or a goal or something you're looking to improve or work on during this time, whether you're taking like an online class or whether you're mastering like a new language or I mean, a lot of people like launch a business during their year abroad or whatever. Like they've quit their job, they've got this lump sum of money and they're going to launch a business. Like adding some layer of depth to like what your purpose is beyond just like, okay, another museum, okay, another beach. Like you have to add a little bit something else to it to make it sustainable.
How did you guys figure out that 6 weeks was the right sweet spot for your family?
We took a trip that was like 11 weeks and it was just like dragging our feet by the end. We're like, we tried to be gone the whole winter because we don't like the cold at home. By the end, we're like, I would way rather be cold. Like, I just want to go home.
Where were you guys?
That was a big trip. So we started in Costa Rica, or yeah, we were in Costa Rica, we were in Nicaragua, the Virgin Islands, Florida, and then Jamaica at the end. So it was a big trip. I was pregnant with our third, so we were trying to get like one big trip in. Last big trip in is a family of 4. And it was too much. I mean, we were excited about the different parts of it. By the end, we were at like, we decided to close out the trip with like an all inclusive, which we had never done before in Jamaica. We're like sitting at this all inclusive, like, what do we do? Do we eat more food? Do we sit on the beach again? Do we eat more? Like, what? Like, I don't know. We were bored.
Oh, it was probably in 2019, we did 6 weeks in Asia, but we did exactly what you recommend against. We didn't know better. So we were checking in and out of hotels every 2 to 3 days. And
Yeah.
so in that 6 weeks, we did like, I want to say it was like 16 different cities and handful of different countries in Asia. And it was fun, trip of a lifetime, but very, very exhausting. And we didn't know better. That was the first time
How old were your kids when you did that?
we just had a 1-year-old at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exhausting.
So just, I mean, we thought it was going to be relaxing and we came back needing a vacation.
Yeah. It ends up like that often.
Yeah. Do your kids feel like it's going on a vacation?
Our kids definitely get excited. I mean, they don't like not like going to school or anything like that. They're not like excited to leave school, but they're excited to like go on a trip. They get really excited for the airplane rides because we don't like watch a lot of movies at home. And they know on the airplane ride, they can watch like 8 movies and somebody's going to bring them apple juice and get snacks and like someone's going to wait on them. And like they love the longer the airplane ride, the better.
Yeah. The kids are the same way.
It's ridiculous.
So knowing that there's probably lots of listeners that are curious about this and are wanting to learn more, what are some of the top tips that you have for these families that haven't done any world schooling, any extended trips like this before? What's some initial advice that you would have for them?
Definitely get a passport and start small. I mean, you don't need to start with a 6-week trip. I think like start with 2 or 3 weeks and kind of find your flow and go to a place you want to go, but also go to a place where it's not going to feel hard. I mean, the place that I recommend people going if they're living in the United States is like a beginner trip would be Guatemala. It's not quite as like birdy as Mexico. It feels a little more exotic. There's a lot of culture. You can do it affordably. There's great food. There's world school hubs. There's tons of expats. It's a great place to learn Spanish. You can check a lot of boxes in Guatemala. It's a very short flight from the US. So for families who have new flyers who maybe don't do well on airplanes yet, it's affordable to get down there. You're in the same time zone. I think it's central time there. So if you're working central hours, I think Guatemala is definitely the place I recommend people start.
What else is on your short list of destinations like that?
For other people or for myself?
For other people, like for the starter family, dipping their toes in the water.
Yeah, Guatemala is a great one. If you have really young kids and money is not a super concern for you, I think Iceland is awesome because has so many like open spaces for kids to frolic, and there's all these like natural wonders, like massive waterfalls and glaciers and animals, and like there's so much to like stuff your eyes with wonder. I love that quote, but like Iceland is wonder and it's low stress. Whereas like sometimes when we're in Latin America, my kids feel stressed out walking down the sidewalk because of the cars and the traffic, and like crossing the street is stressful there. And there's just like a higher level of baseline anxiety all the time walking around in those cities, whereas like Iceland does not give you that at all. So I think Guatemala is a great one for some reasons. Iceland's a great one for reasons. If you're really on a tight budget, Colombia is amazing. You can do pretty much anything you want to do in Colombia. It's so diverse. They have everything there, and it is the cheapest place we've ever traveled. Amazing.
And then what about some of your favorite hubs?
Yeah, we've really enjoyed all the hubs. Our first hub we did, the Hive in the Dominican Republic, was amazing. I think that her name is Kate, the woman who started the hub, and she has just been an educator for such a long time and has just really deeply thought through what she wants the educational component to look like. And it is so well built. The educational side of it is just beautiful. They spent a lot of time on like regulating emotions and anger, and like our kids were really little when they went there. But they have programs for older kids too, and it was amazing. For Boundless Life, I can't recommend that highly enough. It's a more expensive program, but if you're able to afford it, it really is all that. Like it's like a bougie world school program. It's like all inclusive for accommodation and co-working and all that. And the hub we just did, Deliver a Detour in Peru, it would be a great one for families who are just kind of like dipping their toes in and getting started.
Love that. So if listeners have more questions, if they want to get in touch with you, if they want to purchase the World Schooling Map, what's the best way to do all that?
Yeah, so they can check out the website living-conventionally.com. On YouTube, we have a world schooling playlist. So that's at Living Conventionally, and you go over to the playlist tab, and there's one about world schooling, and there's some kind of just general world school videos, but then there's videos about world schooling in specific locations. Mostly active on Instagram too, share a lot about like world schooling hubs on there, and you can find the link to the world schooling map on the website or on YouTube or on Instagram. So
Love that. We will drop all of those links into the show notes as well. So
awesome.
it was so great chatting with you today, Cassidy. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Empowered Living. I hope today's conversation sparked some inspiration and gave you tools to live more intentionally in your family, work, and life. If you enjoyed our episode today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story or actionable takeaway. And if you know someone who would love this episode, share it with them, because living an intentional life is better when we do it together. Until next time, remember, the life you want doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. Let's keep creating it one step at a time.